Welcome to the Top Order podcast. It is IPL time. Every team has played a game in the tournament so far. In Lippy's power rankings, he's taking some inspiration from the great Michael Baldwin, coming up with an algorithm to rank the teams. Let us know in the comments below whether you like his madness and his method. But we'll be covering the top 10 teams. We're talking about all 10 teams and the top 5 games, which at the moment is the 5 games so far in IPL 2024. All coming up on the Top Order podcast. Stay tuned. Well, Lippy, we've got the power rankings. So the premise of this, I think we had a swish in the background then as well. So it's all happening. So from an editing perspective, this could be quite shaky right off the bat. We are going to cover the power rankings on each of our Monday night shows. So we are going to be aiming to come at you over the course of the next 8 weeks or so, right through to the end of May, where we've got the final happening at a similar time to the Indian elections, I think, which is why the dates for the latter half of the tournament haven't all been set out in stone just yet. But power rankings are going to be on a Monday. We're going to talk through the 10 teams that have played. And so far, all 10 teams have played just one game. So we've had 5 fixtures going back, 4 or 5 days or so. And then most recently, the Gujarat Titans taking down the Mumbai Indians in Game 5 in Ahmedabad. But Lippy, we are going to start with these power rankings. And the team that you've got at the top of the power rankings, I believe, is the CSK. Why are they top of this auspicious table at this stage?
Auspicious. We'll soon find out how this power rankings works and whether my algorithm gets as much grief as Baldy's one. I sort of thought we could do this as really a way to kind of rank the performance of the teams, not solely based on the table, but sort of how we think teams are actually travelling, who's playing the best, which squad should sort of be feeling the best about themselves right now. And as you said, each team's only played one game right now, so it's probably no surprise who the first 5 teams will be in some kind of order. Look, we'll see how it goes. I mean, you might decide that you hate this after you see where I've got KKR ranked. But look, as you said, CSK is top of my rankings. And really it comes down to the fact that it's just been business as usual for them. Basically, last season's champions, they came into the game with, you could say, a few concerns. That Devon Conway, one of the stars of the tournament, out injured. Patirana, who performed so well for them, also out injured, and actually out injured for a significant amount of time, both of them. MS Dhoni decided to step aside from the captaincy, which, I don't know that anyone necessarily saw coming. It happened in 2022, and it didn't go quite so well for them when they tried to phase out of MS at that point. But Gaikwad takes over. But look, in comes Rachin Ravindra, Daryl Mitchell, the Fizz, who takes 4 wickets, wins player of the match, and CSK are just rolling again. I mean, Binksy, what did you like most about their opening performance?
Yeah, look, I think that there was a lot to like from that performance. I think, clearly from a bowling perspective, the Fizz, he's had a number of IPL teams, hasn't he? I think he was at the Mumbai Indians for a period of time. Obviously offers that sort of left arm option and used in this game as well in a little bit of an impact player trade. So he came in for Shivam Dubey. Came out, I should say, for Shivam Dubey in this game. And I think that's probably something we'll talk about later when we talk about Dinesh Karthik's role in this game as well. So, look, I think you've got to definitely say that it was, the bowling performance, I think, that, really helped the Chennai Super Kings. And then, look, contributions throughout the order with the bat. I think, obviously, I know you'll be very, very keen to talk about Rachin Ravindra's impact. Certainly from a strike rate perspective, was the highest in the match. And got them off to a really, really good start. He was out, I think, in the 7th over. The score already, 70 odd at that point. But then it was just then solid contributions, including, again, another one from another New Zealander in Daryl Mitchell. And then obviously that impact player as well, when you kind of combine what Shivam Dubey and the Fizz did, that's a pretty useful way to use that rule, which was, is an interesting one from a conceptual perspective. I think your overseas player can only be the impact player if he replaces another overseas player. Is that right? But then
Yeah.
otherwise, it needs to be it needs to be an Indian affair in terms of utilisation of those players through the course of the tournament. So yeah, look, really, really solid opening performance. MS Dhoni, other than I guess a pretty steady game with the gloves. Didn't contribute with the helicopter at any point, but he wasn't required to do so either. So yeah, a good start for the defending champs.
Absolutely, and I mean, you get the sense that MS Dhoni be quite happy not to contribute with the bat or do anything apart from just doing a nice tidy job behind the sticks and waving people side to side a meter either way in the field. I think he's still going to be an important factor in setting the field and his responsibilities out there, I'm sure. Just quickly on Rachin, I know we want to try and get through all these different games, but on Rachin, I'm keen to get your thoughts on, because I obviously I'm very biased. I really, rate him as a player. I'm just so pleased that he looked the part out there. Basically, I thought he had really big shoes to fill. Everyone's very excited about him, obviously, but big shoes to fill stepping in for Devon Conway. He comes in, takes a really good catch, helped out Ajinkya Rahane with another, brilliant catch between the two of them, and just got off to a flying start. And he just seems like a big game player, like he loves that big stage.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and I think we might have had some comments actually in the socials about that, about the impact that Rachin was going to have, and whether or not really the CSK had feel that hole at the top of the order that was Devon Conway. And I think if we look at Devon Conway's Test match form over the course of the last little while, it hasn't been as strong as it was at the start of a remarkable career for him. That early double hundred, etc. But yeah, I think your comment that how Rachin just looks sort of born to play on that stage is probably the factor that's the most impressive. He just looks a international quality player. He doesn't look phased at any point in any game of cricket. And look, I guess also coming into the environment that he's gonna come into with some of the people in that dressing room, it just must be such a nice place to be. The defending champions kicking off the tournament, getting underway with a win and being able to contribute at the top of the order. Dream debut for him, really.
Brilliant. Yeah, he did a superb job. To sort of on the flip side of this game, the other team that we're going to cover, I know it's not, my power rankings are not going to be in order in terms of 1 to 10, because we want to cover these games and it doesn't really make sense to talk about this game and then not talk about the other teams. So RCB is the side that I have all the way down in 8th. They didn't get pummeled in this game, but all the concerns I think that we had about them before the tournament were on full display again. And I kind of think it just makes you wonder, is this going to be the same old story once again? And bowling in particular was an issue for them. The seamers just couldn't take early wickets, and you get the sense that defending any sort of total for them or keeping any sort of score under 180, 190, 200 is going to be a big problem for RCB all year.
Yeah, look, it's really too early to tell, isn't it? We're talking about one game in. We're talking a game of T20 cricket with a pretty healthy run rate, and I think we'll talk maybe about the fact that probably the way that this impact player rule is going to be utilised. I'm going to suggest is going to mean we're going to have some pretty high totals throughout the course of this IPL because of your ability essentially to play 12, right? And if you obviously get it right, it means you get an extra bowling option and an extra batting option out of the game. And so, totals are going to go that little bit higher because you are able to go that little bit harder for that little bit longer with both bat and ball. I think, look, where I think you look at that bowling card and have some concerns, you don't necessarily look at the individual figures and say that, Mohammad Siraj going at nearly 10 and over is a concern because it's the first game of the season. But the fact that they've used 7 bowlers throughout the course of this this innings, Maxwell down the bottom, just bowling the one over, and then really the 2 guys with the lowest economy rates in that, in Mayank Dagar and Glenn Maxwell, only bowling 3 overs between them when you've got some other guys going for much higher economy rates. So you've got to say that potentially RCB have got that set of permutations a little bit wrong. And I guess, when you've got a couple of those seamers and you've got that impact player, sometimes you might do something that you don't really or wouldn't really do if you only had your 5 or 6 bowling options. Would Yash Dial, having not come into that side, have taken on that role? They've tried to kind of balance the way they've used their seamers in Siraj and Alzari Joseph, and it's not gone particularly well for them. If you kind of look at those bowling stats. So look, a bit of a stuttery start, a little bit of ill discipline with the ball as well. A few wides from Joseph and Cam Green as well, which never helps in terms of the look. And then that's probably where they lost their way a little bit. But yes, some shades of last year, getting off to not as good a start as they probably did in a number of games, the RCB. Obviously, Faf and Virat were superb last year, but not a lot else until you got down into the depth of that innings with Dinesh Karthik and the other guy with the keeping gloves, Rawat. Obviously putting the icing on the cake of that innings, because they had stuttered a little bit going what was it, 5 for 80 odd or whatever. So yeah, some early concerns, but it is only one game in. Long way to go in this 167 game tournament.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe not time to panic just yet for RCB. Shall we move on to the second team on my list, which maybe this is people might think this is an overreaction because it's only game one, but second on the list I have the Gujarat Titans, and that's simply because I feel like we just have to stop underrating this team. I know that not all of us underrate this team, but two finals from 2 years before this, no one really expected him to win in that first season. And then this off-season, they lose Hardik Pandya for nothing. He heads back to the Mumbai Indians, who they're playing in this first game. They put on, what feels like an underwhelming score on the board against tournament favourites. In the final over, it looks like, script is written for Hardik to come in, win the game against the former team, show everyone why they'll miss him in 2024, but the Titans find a way to get the win. We just have to stop underrating this team, don't we, Binksy?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we do underrate them, Stu, and certainly the bookmakers don't underrate them. They probably do if you kind of look at the fact that given their pedigree over the course of the last couple of years, you've got Mumbai up there in the betting. But look, I don't think anyone is necessarily underrating them. I think probably what we're looking at is a little bit of bias in terms of the more established franchises and probably some of the more established absolute Indian gun players. So we're talking about CSK with what they've got to offer. We're probably talking a little bit about Mumbai with your likes of Ishan Kishan and Rohit Sharma and Tilak Varma and Pandya and Jasprit Bumrah being real big box office names that are going to sell the kind of posters and the social media feeds. But yeah, look, Gujarat have got a solid little lineup. And look, put in a really, really good performance in the course of this game. I thought Amazi was fantastic with the new ball. Got it to swing and really set up Ishan Kishan really well with an in swinger. Then bowled him the one away and it got him caught behind pretty early on. And then some real good swing and seam bowling from him. And they also fielded really, really well. And I think that obviously that's going to be a pretty big part of any T20 tournament. They've got a really good drummer in their band in Ridham and Saha. We talked a little bit about that in the preview, where he was going to potentially play a part. It is still at the top of the order. So look, we'll see how he goes throughout the tournament. But again, look, really, really tidy and sort of, I guess, really helped really get them deep in that game. And then, some catches in the deep. Balls that have gone a yard either side of the fielder during that last sort of 4 or 5 overs, who might have had a different result. But they seem to get everything right with their death bowling. They kept their nerve when they got hit. They kind of went back and did the same things again and made sure that they were bowling to the long side of the ground and got a couple of catches out square that probably just showed that they knew how to ice that game with the ball.
Totally, and I think your point about sort of the unheralded players and the contributions from everyone. I think that one of the biggest examples of that is Mohit Sharma, who somehow we failed
Yeah.
to mention during our preview, who was a leading wicket taker last season. I was going to try and say what colour cap he had, but I couldn't remember it, Binksy. I know you're all across that.
Purple. We did mention him really brief. We did mention him really briefly just to say
Yeah.
that his wicket taking was there, but yeah, certainly didn't spend the amount of time on him that we did on maybe an Umesh Yadav or even a Spencer Johnson, and certainly in terms of his impact in this game as well. Again, coming in to the side as the impact player for Sai Sudarshan, who had look, a fantastic little. You'd probably call it slightly more than a cameo, wouldn't you? In that innings, 45 off 39 or thereabouts. Particularly that he had to face, obviously some pretty good seam bowling from the likes of Bumrah. But yeah, again, some question marks, which I'm sure will come on to Mumbai Indians. But I don't think anybody would have any gripes with essentially a team that, yes, they're in the top of the betting, but they weren't at the top of the betting, and they've come in and done a really good job to beat Mumbai, and a big opening game for them.
And a lot of people, I'm not expecting you to answer this, Binksy, but because I'm hoping some of our listeners might contribute in the comments. A lot of people have been saying to us that Ashish Nehra just has this magic touch, and I'm keen to know where this wizardry comes from. Is this something that has just come because of these two fantastic years with the Titans, or has he had these special powers for a long time? I'm very curious, because he's not someone that kind of sprung to mind to me as a mastermind, and that's not a slight on him. It was just he wasn't someone that I thought of as some sort of coaching genius, but he seems to be able to get around these players and make them, I guess Gujarat has always seemed to me like they're better than the sum of their parts. You know what I mean?
Well, and look, again, I don't know too much about him from a coaching perspective, but I think the one thing you'd say is, he was in and around an Indian side with a bunch of superstars, and in fairness to him, he wasn't a superstar. He was a cameo player, a bit part player. They had a number of other options with similar skill sets to him as he was playing. I think the thing that I think you've got to look at with his ability as a coach, it's strange that there's not more Indian coaches in this tournament. I think I'm right in saying he's one of only 2 Indian coaches. In the tournament, we've got a lot of overseas coaches. So there's obviously that pedigree there for him, or certainly that reputation there from him as an Indian coach to be in charge of one of these, these franchises, at least on the, on the field and the coaching side. I know we've got directors of cricket and high performance coaches left, right, and centre, and guys that run several different, franchises under the same sort of banner. But yeah, look, a real, whether it's a magic touch or wizardry, as you've put in your notes, I don't know. But look, certainly he started with a reasonable. He started with a reasonable spell, and so have a couple of his bowlers as well.
Totally. And Mumbai, look, you talked a little bit about them before. I have to say, I'm not prepared to panic yet on them. So I do have them kind of first of my losing sides, in sliding in there at 6 in the power rankings. I don't know how much more we can praise Jasprit Bumrah. We seem to do it on every single episode. Yorkers, changes of pace. He was just so superb in this game. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on what you made of Hardik Pandya returning back to the Mumbai Indians. He certainly didn't have the roles that I guess I expected him to have. He, opened the bowling. Jasprit, took that role off Jasprit. Bumrah only bowled 1 over, I think, in the power play, and then ended up not coming into bat until number 7, because of impact players, and because also they brought in Namandir, who, great, made an exciting 20 off 10 balls, really looked like an exciting package, kept Nahil Wadir on the bench. Sky obviously isn't fit yet to play, so, whether he's able to keep his spot when he comes back, who knows. But yeah, what did you make of how Hardik was used? Because I certainly thought, in particular, it was weird to leave him, a player of his quality, all the way down to at number 7.
Yeah, look, really, really strange. I think almost coming in and playing the, almost the Dhoni role as captain of the Mumbai Indians. Obviously, not with the gloves necessarily, but certainly batting down at seven. I think again you highlighted it there, Stu. That the fact that they brought in their impact player in Devont Brevis, who, obviously had an impact in the
Yeah,
game. When you then kind of look at strike rates, it probably wasn't quite enough from him, and probably got out not at a great time. They were pretty much, you would say, if not cruising, certainly in the pound seats at that point when he got out.
yeah,
Just mistiming a pull shot right off the bottom of the bat. Reasonable caught and bowled actually. He dropped one a little bit earlier in the innings as well. But yes, then strange again from a bowling perspective. That he took the new ball and he took the new ball with Luke Wood and Jasprit Bumrah comes on first change. I mean, look, who knows if he'd have done better than his 3 for 14 because that's a pretty reasonable set of returns. But if that 3 for 14 had been in the first, 3 or 4 overs, them only taking that first wicket in the fourth over of that power play, could things have been very, very different for Mumbai in this game. So yeah, a strange debut from a tactical perspective, and yeah, I guess we said on the previous show that where a lot of Mumbai's strength is going to be is in that engine room of that middle order. They've got some really, really destructive players in the likes of Brevis, in the likes of Verma, Tim David, obviously, and Hardik himself. But realistically, in this form of the game, only one of those guys is probably going to come off in any
mm,
game if you're going to be successful, because ultimately, T20 is by and large your top four guys. If one of them or two of them get going, then what you're looking for from from that engine room is a guy to come in and score 40 off 20 and put the icing on the cake. Rarely you might see them come in and have to get 60 off 50 and ice a game batting second.
mm.
But yeah, they stuttered a little bit, didn't they? Really in that middle order, and it proved costly in the end for them.
Totally. And yeah, I'm not panicking, but I will say, I guess, last point on Mumbai, in that since our preview, we recorded that we were, somewhat optimistic, I guess, around the seam bowling options that they had. Since then, Jason Behrendorff broke his leg, Luke Wood comes in, and Madhushankar also was ruled out, hamstring injury, I think,
Yeah,
ruled out of the tournament and replaced with a 17-year-old Quinn Mapaka, so from South Africa. So there are a few depth issues now in the seam bowling, and Jasprit is going to have to carry that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out over the rest of this tournament. And as we move on to the next game, and in third spot, I have the Rajasthan Royals. And look, this might start to become basically the Adam Binks victory lap because of the way you kind of highlighted a few players in the preview, and they all sort of start to come to the fore in these next couple of games. For Rajasthan, biggest winners across the round, round one by net run rate. And, I've spoken at length about the power that I just love that they have in their lineup with, even with Jaiswal, with Butler, with even Jude Daryl down the order. But today, I think it was this morning, New Zealand time, it was Sanju Samson who scored 82 off 52, the biggest role. Binksy, I think you called him for most runs in the tournament. A big season, you predicted at least. You must be pretty stoked with that knock today.
yeah. Look, really, really stoked. I think we talked a lot about the options that the Rajasthan Royals would have. We talked about their three guys that can really balance the side by batting in the top 4 or 5 and keeping wicket. And Sanju Samson, as captain of the franchise as well, has taken that mantle on to captain, keep wicket, and bat three. And yeah, look, has certainly put his best foot forward in this game. Little cameo from Yashasvi Jaiswal as well. And Ryan Parag we didn't talk too much about in the previous show. So look, a really, really solid start for them. Against, I guess a team that we've got some question marks about throughout the course of the preview. But look, Royals couldn't have got off to a much better start. Yeah, comprehensive win when you think about it. Winning by 20 odd runs or thereabouts. That's big in the context of a T20 game. And look, but for some sort of fireworks late on from Nicholas Pooran, but they never looked like getting to the run. So you kind of take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt. And look, some decent little bowling performances in there as well. I'm sure you'll be pleased that Trent showed a little bit of form with the ball at the top as well. So yeah, great start for my boys. Very pleased. But we're only one game in.
Yeah. We're only one game in for sure. But yeah, look, I hope we do see a big season for Sanju Samson. I feel like he's kind of teased us sort of every season of the IPL. If you run through his stats, there's averages in there. It's mainly 20s and 30s. His average, he gets 350s a season. It's not, he hasn't sort of been able to put together the real, averaging 50s, 100, 650s, kind of big year to kind of cement his spot, I suppose, in this Indian side. And, he's someone who I'm sure will have hopes of making this T20 side for the World Cup. So, yeah, I'd love to see him kind of have a big year and really show us, more and more of what he's got. And, yeah, look, I mean, you said Trent Boult. I mean, delighted with the power play. We love, getting wickets from Trent from the power play. That's been his calling card. I think I saw in the commentary that he's the leading power play wicket taker over the past 2 seasons of the IPL, and that probably comes as no surprise. He bowls a lot of overs in the power play, which does help him. You often, I think Raj said in the preview, we want to kind of see him. I think you want to see him for New Zealand coming in and bowling at least 2 overs in the power play, if not 3. When that ball is swinging, it's that's when he's at his most dangerous. And I think we saw that today, in that he looked dangerous early on, and then got taken to a little bit in that final over when the hit was on. So yeah, pleased with the way they started.
And look,
no, you
Nick,
go.
I'll just build on that really quickly, and I think that's kind of, again, one of the interesting things about this impact player rule, isn't it? Is that you can actually gamble when you've got a guy like Trent Boult at the top of the order. Normally, if you're kind of talking about an 11-a-side game, it's probably bowl 2 and then maybe keep 2, and whether you bowl those 2 in a row or you bowl 1 in the middle and then 1 at the death. But yeah, they've got some options, I think, later in the tournament potentially, where if it is swinging and if he's got a decent top order on toast, that you can keep him going for 3 and even 4 overs, and really utilise that skill set, because I do think at times he's quite slappable at the death, isn't he, Trent? And look, that's not a criticism. It's a very, very tough game being a bowler in the death overs. But I think the lengths and the way that he bowls, he's probably a little bit more prone to that than potentially someone like a Bumrah, who's maybe got a few more tricks in the bag. But sorry for cutting you off, but just wanted to add that in there.
No, totally. The more, the better. I was just going to move to LSG because you touched on them before, and they're quite a divisive side, I feel like. It seems to be mainly all the KL Rahul hate that comes out during the IPL. But, I've got them in my rankings down at number 9. You touched on before how 20 runs is quite a lot in, a T20 game, and it did feel that way. I know you could argue that they made a really decent fight back. They were 11 for 3 with Trent taking those 2 wickets, Andre Berger taking that 1, and suddenly, you could kind of say, okay, 11 for 3, this game's over already. But I think that for me, this really felt like the most underwhelming performance of the round, and I think probably the only reason they're not in 10th is because I'm really worried about one of the other sides in this tournament. But, I look at it in that they got really good contributions from KL Rahul, from Nicholas Pooran, Deepak Hooda. We asked for more from him. He's hit 26 off 13 balls, but they still really haven't got close on a day when no one in the opposition has really run through them. So I just feel like they were a long way away in this game, and they're sitting in that dressing room not feeling that great about how things went. Is that too harsh, Binksy?
Well, look, I think there'll be probably a few LSG fans that are saying, thanks very much, we'll take ninth in the power rankings because they're 10th on the table. So, they're a step ahead in your rankings. But yeah, look, again, again, this might be a little bit harsh on the Royals. I don't necessarily see them as being a side that are going to necessarily blow people away with their bowling firepower. I think when you look at where their strength is, it is going to be that they blow away sides with their batting firepower. And I think to an extent we've seen that with, some strike rates, certainly in and around that 150, 160 marker, and a little cameo at the top, as we talked about, from Jaiswal striking at 200. I think their bowling side, the Royals, is going to be one that, yes, you've got a couple of quality spinners in there. You've obviously got Trent at the top of the order, and Mandro Berger as well coming in. So I think that's going to be their game plan. Again, they're not going to be super worried. I think KL Rahul is an experienced enough player that he probably stays off his social media for the course of this tournament and just goes about his business. At the end of the day, he's the second top scorer in the innings. He's the captain and the keeper in the side. I think if he has a good tournament, it'll go a long way to defining where they are. And look, you're not going to bet against Quinton de Kock getting going in this tournament at some point as well. So look, I think when they look at it, they'll be disappointed, obviously, to come out of the gates and lose their first game. But I think they'll look at that top order and go, if we can get some runs from de Kock and Padikal, who've had good tournaments in the past, we get a little bit out of our overseas players in Pooran and Stoinis in that engine room. They're not going to be super worried that they haven't got the ability to score up the kind of strike rates that they need, regardless of what Rahul's doing. And if he finishes the tournament averaging 40 at a strike rate of 130, you'd suggest that they'll have gone okay.
Oh yeah, maybe a little extreme from me. KL Rahul is going to be an interesting watch because a lot of people were trying to tell us that he'd be batting in the middle order for this tournament, and that and keep holding the gloves, which he did take the gloves today, and obviously trying to find a spot there for himself in that Indian T20 side, and we saw Nicholas Pooran. His wares on display today. Baldy would have loved that, being a huge Kyle Mayers fan. It's going to make it pretty tough for Mayers to get in after what Pooran has done today. But I think that might be enough on LSG for now, until we see the next few games. And unless you've got anything to add.
No, nothing else. I'm just keen to get where we're going next, mate.
Okay. Let's go. Because this one might just be me, introducing this and then stepping back from the microphone. Because, in fourth place, which probably you think it is too low, I have the Kolkata Knight Riders. And Binksy, I did ask you in our preview, I'll announce this to the listeners, that I did, ask with a bit of a leading question saying, do Andre Russell and Sunil Narine especially, are they still match winners at their age and the amount of T20 games that they played? And you did your best not to shout at me at the time. I know how strongly you feel about those guys, but I think we got our answer in this first game. So, I'll just step back. The floor is yours.
Well, look, to be honest, mate, I'm not too disappointed in you. You were quite right in being able to ask that kind of question in the preview show. The question that really ground my gears was from my Australian colleague, who I think said that Andre Russell was unders for 2.5 man of the match performances during the course of this tournament. I'd just like to put a case forward that he actually had 2 man of the match performances in this game, one with the bat and one with the ball. So he only needs 0.5 of a man of the match award, and he's already got Mr. Baldwin covered. But look, what I'm equally happy with is, we talked a bit about Phil Salt coming into this side to replace Jason Roy. We talked about whether or not, he would make it into that lineup. I don't think there was necessarily any doubt that he was off his England form of late. And again, a good start for him, opening the batting and out, leaving the KKR in a little bit of poop, actually, at 6 for 119. And then in comes my man, Dre Russ, just the 7 nicely stroked sixes in his 64 off 25 rocks, as they call them in Australia, and look, put in a pretty formidable, a pretty formidable total up for the KKR. And I think you've got in your notes as well, Ramandeep Singh doing a really, really nice job. Kind of put, I think you said structure in the innings, but there was some firepower within that structure as well. And then, look, I guess it's been a little bit of a tale of this first round. We've had some seamers that are, highly vaunted, getting a bit of tap. I'm sure we'll come on to Mitchell Starc, but, Bhuvanesh Kumar as well, going for nearly 13 and over. Marco Janssen only bowling 3 overs because he got pummeled. So, look, some question marks, across the tournament from a seaming perspective. But then, some really, really good bowling, I thought, from Nareen and from Dre Russ as well, and Harshit Rana as well. So a good opening salvo from the KKR. And again, I think they'll be pretty happy that they're in 4th on your ranking, because I think on run rate they're 5th in the table. I think so. Again, no complaints, but a pretty good start for the Knight Riders.
It's funny because, hearing you talk and thinking about what I tried to do with the power rankings in terms of like how teams are feeling in the dressing room, I actually think there probably is a good case for them to go higher, because they had a lot that wasn't going well for them. And basically they've come in and, as you say, they were in a bit of trouble when Phil Salt went out. To see Dre Russ and Rinku, who, puts in a decent performance here, but is completely overshadowed by Andre Russell, to get 85 off those final overs and actually get contributions all the way from, as wickets were falling around them, Phil Salt, Ramandeep Singh, as you touched on, I think you're really, really stoked with that. And, they didn't strike me as a team that, when I look at their lineup, I don't think of a team that's going to get truckloads of runs. But then watching this, you think, actually, maybe they are, because of all the power they had. And, Dre Russ, he's, took Markanday down. Then he just, took Bhuvi Kumar to town at the end. I mean, look, if him and Rinku are at the business end of the innings, and with 10 or 15 runs behind them, it's going to be really, really tough to stop them. So, very much a strong side. I'm glad you mentioned Harshit Rana, because 13 to win, 6 off the first ball, and you're thinking, another player who you don't want to face at the death, Heinrich Klaasen's going to do it here. But Rana absolutely held his nerve really, really well. But I think the only question now from a KKR point, and you touched on it before, Mitchell Starc. I mean, any nerves at all about him going for 53 off his 4?
Well, look, I don't want to be the Englishman that sort of just has a go at an Australian, so I might throw that back to you. If it was Jimmy Anderson or Stuart Broad, I wouldn't be too concerned. It's one game, and we've talked about the fact that some pretty decent seamers have been taken down and will continue to get taken down. Good bowlers are going to go for big scores when you highlight some of the batting class that's on show. And look, I think the interesting thing is, from a Kolkata Knight Riders perspective, their middle order, it looks like some kind of coding that Baldy would do. It's almost binary in terms of the numbers from Nareen through the Ayers and Nitesh Rana, and then it really is that those fireworks at the end that have kind of put the icing on that cake. So dangerous and worrying, I think, when someone like Dre Russ, I think, came in at number 8 in this side. With Ramandeep Singh and Rinku above him. When you look at that on paper, particularly if Venkatesh and Shreyas Iyer get going, if Rana, who had a good year, get going at any point alongside your Phil Salts and your Sunil Nareen, so he's really in that kind of pinch hitter role. I'm actually surprised to see him up there. But you're going to be pretty scared if Rinku Singh and Dre Russ and even Mitchell Starc have got a platform. If you take away that sort of 5 for 100 and talk about it being maybe 100 and 140 for 5 with 7 or 8 overs to go, you're going to be, your fans are going to be rushing for the hard hats in the crowd. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, that's probably a nice transition to the start conversation. I think is probably a nice transition to into the Sunrisers, because I actually think personally that the credit goes to, Klaasen, to be honest, in the way that he
Yeah,
kind of dealt with Mitchell Starc, and every other bowler that he faced took quite a liking to Varun Chakravarti as well. But I have the Sunrisers in seventh, and a narrow loss, as you touched on, with I think some really positive signs, but also some really concerning ones. A lot of figuring out to do for the combination of their side. I know we've kind of touched on a lot of the combinations that they're going to have to figure out. Do you think they sort of got that combination right? I know that Hasaranga I don't think was available for this game, but yeah, do you think that they've quite got the combination of their balance of their side sorted, Binksy?
yeah. Look, we talked about this a little bit during the preview, didn't we? And I think particularly with picking Aidan Markram, Clarkson's going to definitely play, isn't he?
Mm.
And then I think Pat Cummins has to play because he's your skipper. And then we had a question mark around who the fourth or how they were going to balance those sort of overseas players. I'll probably throw it back to you, Lip, and if I kind of look at it, have they missed a trick? Heinrich Klaasen has been in such great form around the world, and I know he's got that sort of power and that ability, to kind of do what he's done. Would you like to see him coming in a bit further up the order though? In that side, I think when you've got a guy like that in your locker, you kind of want him to face as many balls as you can. A little bit like probably a Joss Butler or someone like that. We've seen what he can do down the order, but when you give him, the ability to take 10 balls to get in and then do that, you've probably got, a slightly different scenario. If Klaasen, instead of coming in at, 3 for 100 after 11 overs, is in a little bit earlier, are you in a better position? So even just swapping around him and Aidan Markram, for me, looks as if that's going to help the balance of that side in the long term. Yeah, I don't know what you think.
I'm always confused about, I mean, we talked about it with Hardik Pandya before, I'm always confused why some of these players, have so few deliveries that they face in this. Because, as you say, Heinrich Klaasen has been one of the best. You could make probably a pretty good case that he's been almost the best white ball player going around in the last, 18 months, with the way that he's just been taking apart attacks. In fairness, that has been in the back end of innings. He's been coming in. So probably you want him coming in, I would say, 9th over, 10th over, so that he can, have a few balls to get going and then just absolutely take off. Because, we saw it as you mentioned, with 19 balls to go, they needed 64 to win, and Klaasen just took off, and suddenly it looked like they were going to win. And you could make a case again that they probably should have won after he hits that first ball for 6. So I think that the thing with the Sunrisers is probably just it felt like they were taking a bob each way with the way that they've balanced their side. I think to really get the best out of their team, I really think they're going to have to make a call and say, we're going to either back our Indian local batters to do a job up the top, or we're going to back some of our bowlers. We saw Natarajan and Markanda, who I thought looked pretty good, and obviously until Dre Russ showed up at least. But Marco Janssen, a quality player, but I really feel like he looks a bit like a deer in the headlights when the batters are going at him, and maybe that's a bit harsh. This obviously wasn't the best start for him, but I feel like they had good, solid contributions from some of those local Indian players, Abhishek Sharma, who I really rate, Tripathi, Agarwal, as you said, they all kind of contributed, but I think they've got to make a call and go, we back these guys to, strengthen to be enough for our batting. So maybe we can leave out Agarwal and play, or not Agarwal, leave out Aidan Markram and strengthen our bowling. Or we go the other way and say, we're going to really strengthen our batting and we're going to back our Indian seamers, who I think probably is the better approach. Maybe go with another one of their Indian seamers ahead of Marco Janssen and bring in another overseas batter. So, I still think it's not panic stations, obviously, after game one, but I think they've got a lot of thinking to do around the combinations and what they're going to achieve in this tournament.
Absolutely.
Let's go now to the fifth and final game, and obviously anyone who's been counting will know that now leaves the Punjab Kings in fifth in my power rankings, and Delhi, unfortunately for them, at rock bottom. And it wasn't necessarily my intention to kind of have lowest ranked winner and lowest ranked loser to come from the same game, but here we are, and I think when we talk about Punjab, it's probably going to be another victory lap for you, Binksy, and although I am still quite fascinated by the way that Sam Curran was used in this game. He opened the bowling, but only bowled the one over, then comes in at number 4 and plays a match-winning knock, helped by Liam Livingstone. We were a bit unsure about who might fill that role for Punjab in terms of the overseas player, but Livingstone definitely put a very strong foot forward, 38 off 21 balls or something, whatever it was. Punjab gets the win. Do you think Curran at 4, is that something you would expect to see regularly now? I mean, after a player of the match performance, you might say obviously, but yeah, what do you think, Binksy?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I just wonder whether both the comment around his bowling at the top of the innings and then where he bats was actually whether they were both matchup related scenarios. So I think one thing you find with his bowling, if he doesn't get a bit of swing with that new ball, whilst he's got a little bit of variation, he actually bowls a pretty decent bouncer, I think, for a short guy, a skiddy bouncer. And then he's got the off-pace delivery as well. He bowls a little cutter. So he's got some tools. But if he's not swinging it at the top of the order, I think, again, we talked about it a little bit earlier on, he's potentially a little bit slappable. So I wonder whether they just looked to take him out of the attack because they just didn't feel as if he had that necessarily that zip and that that top wicket taking ability right at the top. And then look, batting wise, I think again. Punjab Kings have got their impact player in at number 3 after the 2 openers. So you think a lot of teams are going to do that, right? Your openers are going to be set regardless of the 12 that you name or the impact player that you've got. But it might be then that you're picking that additional guy to come in and give it a biff if you lose an early wicket, as they did with Johnny Bairstow going, pretty early in the innings. You won't hear me not talk about how good a batsman I think Sam Curran could have been. I don't think he's going to necessarily prove that in all formats of the game. But I think what you saw from him here in this game, as you referred to, a match-winning innings, a 60-odd, he's a proper player. He's got a good technique, but he's also got, again, for a pretty small guy, he's got some power. So look, I don't know whether we'll see him at 4 for the whole of the tournament. But I certainly see him playing a role with the bat throughout the course of the tournament. And I think what you see by him coming into this game at number 4 is that from a Punjab Kings perspective, there's no question about his role in the side as an overseas player. If he's going to bat in that top 4 or 5, he is going to be in the side, fitness permitting, throughout the course of the tournament. And then, just to finish on the other English note in this, slightly surprised to see Livingstone in the side as one of 3 Englishmen in this side. Giso Rabada, the other overseas player for Punjab Kings, and he didn't bowl. So he's bowled a little bit in his international career and his franchise career. But even despite the fact that they got through 6 bowlers in the course of that innings, and as you mentioned earlier, Curran only bowling the one over. He didn't even get the nod to loosen up at any point, Liam Livingstone. But yeah, I can see why you've got this game as your sort of top rank or lowest ranked loser and lowest ranked winner in your targets, because it was probably I wouldn't necessarily say the dullest game, but certainly the least. Well, no, because that is actually a synonym. It's the least interesting of the of the games throughout the course of the tournament. So yeah, I think we've not really seen enough from either of those sides, or that really amazing performance from anyone in this game. A decent performance from Curran with 60-odd. And then, a couple of decent bowling performances with some twofers here and there. But, nothing that's really setting the world on fire like your Dre Russes and your Sanju Samsons.
Yeah, totally. And I think it was, again, probably going to feel a bit harsh, but I think it was the lowest quality game that we saw. I think for DC, they might look at that and go, look, wasn't a huge loss on the scorecard, but drop catches, overseas players, all batters, which I thought was quite interesting. Marsh and Warner opening the batting, Shea Hope in there, Tristan Stubbs as their four overseas plays, but still needed to bring in a batter as an impact player, which I might ask you about in a second. And then, Rishabh Pant, who we thought would be understandably rusty. That one cover drive that he smashed that was pretty nice to watch. And, I really enjoyed seeing that. There were shades of the old Rishabh Pant there, but I think it's going to take him time. So, I think, yeah, this is a side I feel like it's really hard to see them string a bunch of wins together. But can we just talk a little bit about the impact player? Because one, I still find it really weird that you can sub out a guy who's batted and bring in another guy to bat when that in itself is weird to me. I sort of feel like when we did the traditional subs or whatever they were called in international cricket, it was the case of between you are sort of one player, but now you can bring out a batter and bring in another one. And I think what was interesting is, you've touched on it already, is that most teams, right, your impact player, you're hoping to kind of get an all-rounder out of that spot. You're hoping to then be able to have 7 or 8 batters and 6 bowlers, specialist bowlers, with the way that you use your impact player. But DC took a gamble. Basically, they went, okay, we just don't have enough runs. We've got to get a score here. So they brought in Abhishek Perel, and it worked. They got he smashed. He made an impact. He got 32 off 10 balls, but in the end, maybe it cost them at the back end because Mitchell Marsh had to bowl 4 overs, and Ishant Sharma's injury didn't help. But what do you sort of make about them actually going, we have to do something now. We have to make a call. Forget about all the strategy. We just have to try and resurrect this game.
Yeah, look, I guess it kind of just goes with the theme of trying to take a game of cricket as deep as you possibly can. And really, as you've alluded to, that the only real choice there was that they probably felt they were going to be, well, look, as it was, probably 10 or 15 short, you would say. Without that innings from Abhishek Paral, they may have ended up 30 or 40 short. So, yeah, I think, like you said, they've taken a little bit of a gamble to say, right, what gives us a chance of staying in this game is 20 or 30 runs from him. It came off. And then look, they still had the ability to have 6 bowlers in the course of the game. So, they obviously felt as if they'd got enough strength to do that. As you said, Mitchell Marsh got slapped. It's strange that, did Ishant Sharma get injured? I don't know. This is the one game I didn't see. So obviously that kind of
rolled his ankle.
Meant that Marsh has got to bowl 4 instead of probably he would have been the guy that would have bowled 2, right? With Ishant Sharma. So when you take that kind of gamble, yes, it might backfire, but I don't think they had they did have another choice, but I think they took the right choice. I think they're just unfortunate, obviously, that they didn't get away with that. Got reasonable returns out of their spinners, didn't they? Axar and Kuldeep, continuing their test match pedigree and form, I guess. But again, 2 seamers going for a few in Khalil Ahmed and Mitch Marsh. And that's why we're talking about them as the 2 down the bottom of the power rankings.
Absolutely. It did look like Khalil Ahmed might steal it there with the right at the end. But yeah, those drop catches just proved too much. The 2 bounces we haven't kind of talked too much about in this episode. It's certainly going to be it's going to be a risk reward for people. They're going to have to run in and bowl. It's certainly making an impact in terms of people are trying it, right? Khalil Ahmed picked up a couple of wickets, or picked up at least 1 wicket. That way, it's showing people that if that's a weakness in your game, we're going to be able to exploit it now.
Yeah, look, and I think it's not just that you're going to exploit a weakness against someone who doesn't want to take the short ball on, or doesn't isn't equipped to take the short ball on. what it probably means is that, most rules, I think, have been batting favoured, haven't they, in the course of the evolution of T20 cricket. And I think what this does is it just means that a guy like, in this case, Ahmed or Bumrah or whoever you want to really name, they can actually bowl a bumper early in the over, and a batter is then going, well, he can bowl me another one here. Whereas, in previous editions, you bowl your bumper early in the over, you can just do what, we saw Dre Russ and have seen Dre Russ done a hell of a lot. And he's probably a bad example because he actually takes on the short ball quite well. But you can then just camp and that everything else is probably going to be relatively full, and you can kind of look to get your levers under it. Whereas with that bouncer option, you could get another one flying past your grill throughout the course of the rest of the over. So look, I really like that. I really like that rule. I think the impact player rule, particularly the way that it's able to be used, is going to mean higher scoring games, and it probably also is going to mean we have less dull games as well, because there are going to be teams a little bit like this where you bring in a batter when you're nowhere near a score, and suddenly you've got a score, and then at least it means that you're not having a team chase 140, and it's a foregone conclusion when you go in for the the DLF halftime show.
Totally. Binksy, I think we've got to the end here. I said I would try and keep it to 45 minutes for the power rankings. I didn't quite hit that target, but I have kept it under an hour. So I think it's all us, and we'll be we'll sort of be back with. I'll have to start putting my power rankings for next week, where I'm sure they'll all shuffle all over the place.
Well, yeah, Lippy, I have to say, it's gone a lot better than I expected from an algorithm perspective. So maybe you want to trademark it a little bit like Michael's Hall of Fame algorithm. But look, as you said, we will be back a little bit later in the week. So aiming to podcast a couple of times a week during the course of this IPL. We'll be in the same room as well to do some sort of longer format pieces with the four of us in the room throughout the course of the tournament also. But if you do like the content, particularly if you're new to the podcast, please do make sure you share with your friends, families or club mates. It is going to help more and more people find this through the course of what we hope will be another scintillating IPL tournament. But we'll be back in your feed probably Thursday or Friday of this week with the next IPL instalment. And then, the power rankings might make a return this time, so Monday or Tuesday next week. But for now, it is good night and God bless from us all here in Auckland. We'll see you on the next episode. See you later.